blasting, billowing, bursting forth with the power of 10 billion butterfly sneezes, man with his flaming pyre has conquered the wayward breezes, climbing to tranquility, far above the cloud, concealing the heavens clear of misty shroud. Higher and higher, now we've learned to play with fire, go higher and higher. Moody Blues, I'm a fan, I have to admit. I wish they could play the song, but I don't know what the rights are or any of that stuff. But that comes from Children's album, and it's called Higher and Higher. It was written by their drummer, Graham Edge, who was kind of the poet of the group. And the Moody Blues captured something in that song, something about humankind, about life, about consciousness as an ever-awaking constant of revealing. And if you look at it, humankind, it's like these finer and finer gradations of reality itself are being uncovered, revealed. And if you look at the history of consciousness again, that's what it is. It's this ongoing uncovering of what was once mystery and becomes known. And yet, once becomes known, creates a whole new order of mystery. You know, the whole concept of finally figuring it out. Fractal geometry really shows that there is no final resolution. It just keeps moving into different orders of resolution, if you will, and then it reveals another layer of it. This whole concept of consciousness being the revelation of a mystery, of being inside something and slowly waking to what that something is in finer and finer ways. And of course, our life depends on it. We've talked about the spiritual nature of living in accord, and we've talked about the ecological and environmental aspects of living in accord, and that we have to have enough oxygen, clean water, shelter, education, all of these things in order for us to be a people called humanity. Over and over, we see that there is a challenge and an uncovering happening at the same time at the front edge of who we are. This mystery revealed. And I want to talk about that because there's an uncovering that's happening. And we've talked about that in our own personal lives and how that happens. On the spiritual side, learning to be honest with ourselves. On the historical side, learning to be honest with ourselves. And realizing who we are as a people, realizing who we are with our foibles and our misunderstandings and our short-sightedness that has caused great suffering. All of these things are the revelation. And I think that if we look at all the different species, humans are the quest being. We are the place where mystery is uncovering itself, where we are trying to sort out what it is we're in the middle of. And not just for the sake of survival, not just for the sake of convenience and comfort, but for the sake of knowing who we are. So I want to address just a little bit today about this aspect of humanity, of who we are, who each of us are, or each of us is. The mystery revealed, I think it is the defining piece of the human species. I didn't lay out a whole lot, but I will lay out this final piece. I talked to an elder Native woman, 15 years ago. And back then I was asking everybody, what is reality? And by the way, I'm still asking everybody, what is reality? I asked her that question, and she said, reality is a great touching. This is where we touch, where we work out the meanings through the touching. That is our food, our shelter, our way of talking and being with each other. She was not the one who was teaching that day. She was just one of the people who were hanging with that group of teachers and storytellers. But she showed more wisdom, and I remember what she said, and I can't think of a blessed thing the teacher of that process gave that day. So I'd like to say, hey, Marianne, welcome back. I'd like to say, Bob, glad you're here again. And Bob, let's start with you. Mystery revealed.
Well, I certainly agree with you when you characterize the mystery as being one of the cornerstones, if not the cornerstone, of humanity. And as humans began to separate themselves from the collective, from the tribe, from the family, and begin to view themselves as individuals, that mystery became more and more poignant for them as individuals. And we see a real a number of different ways of approaching that mystery, from the individual, the mystic, who was kind of doing it on his or her own, to the institutions that collectively tried to approach the mystery. And you can go back to the Greek mystery societies. You can go to the various organizations that have tried to approach the mystery collectively. And there always seems to be a dead end that we hit at either end of that continuum, because the institution begins to become more important than the mystery that they're trying to approach, and the individual seems to get lost in a egocentric approach to the mystery without reaching out and making that touching. So like everything else we talk about, there's always this push and pull between the different aspects of anything that humans approach, and that in itself is, I think, part of the mystery. So I've kind of danced around in a whole circle like I usually do, but that's all I can think of to start with.
I love it. How about you, Marianne?
Well, it's all a mystery, right? As you guys were both talking, where I go is immediately what comes to mind is the fish in water, and the fish doesn't know what the water is, right? That whole cliche. And as we're trying to discover the mystery, and we're trying to discover who we are and what we are and why we're here, I think that's where synchronicity kind of plays into that, where we can start to see glimpses into this mystery through everyday actions, through our everyday endeavors. And I think that's where it doesn't have to be this thing that is not a part of us. So it is a part of us. We're a part of it. And I think that there is great suffering in the world. And when we start to try to unmask that suffering and try to figure out how do we alleviate the suffering, and we come to see that we're the cause of a lot of it. We're the cause of, and I think that's the part where it hurts. It hurts us to know that we are responsible for a lot of the bad things that are happening. And so I think getting to know who we are is crucial in order to ever be able to change that. And how do we get there? It's this slow process of it being revealed. That's kind of where I go with it. And it is a mystery. And will we ever get there as a species? I don't know. Will we ever get there as individuals? I think some have. And we read about them and we read their words, and they stay with us for centuries and generations. And just like your friend that you talked about, Red Hawk, that, there is wisdom within each one of us. And how does that come out and get translated to all of us?
And,
right?
And the next verse of that Moody Blues song is, vast vision must improve our sight. Perhaps at last we'll see an end to our home's endless blight, and the beginning of the free. And I think both of you implied that, and, I don't think it's all a mystery anymore. I think that's part of, we know that fire is oxidation. We know, my chemistry, I got to see exactly what was going on in that. Those oxidation equations drove me freaking nuts. I remember when my dad first described photosynthesis, he said, now this is just a theory because we haven't confirmed it yet. I think of the electron. Now, dig this. Okay, you want to understand some quantum physics and these quantum particles? Think of an electron, and I've shared this before, as a big pond, okay? And it's got what are called little white holes and black holes opening and closing. A white hole opens and a little lump of energy comes out into this world and stays for a fraction of a second, and then a black hole, it goes into that. These are like 10 to the minus 30 centimeters large. Now think of a pond with this happening, like little fish coming in. We don't know what's on the other side. Now that's a mystery. But we now know that there are these subatomic quanta of energy and they behave certain ways, and we're starting to look at that. I look at the CRISPR gene and what we're doing in biology. There's so much that we do know. And what I want to focus on today, and Marianne, you touched on it very well, is this point of uncovering. This place where the dialectic between the self and the world is most active. And Marianne, just about everything you were saying, I kept thinking that's what prophetic is. That's what prophecy is. It's looking at what is happening and saying there are consequences to what we do. And we are now at a point where we're looking and going, these consequences, they're because of what we have done, because of how humankind has touched it. And I think that that's part of the journey, is that uncovering. Not only part of it, that's an instrumental piece where uncovering happens, where we honest up, where, and I mentioned this before, and the more I talk to people, the more it seems that there is a new religion rising, and it is a mystery religion, and it is one that shows great homage to that point where things are being uncovered and revealed. And in my growing up, it was called a come to Jesus meeting, where we honest up. But I think there's something new happening. And I think that it really is, Marianne, you brought in justice. It's about how do we uncover the negative aspects of our own nature and the consequences of them in such a way that we become more healthy and whole.
And the mystery continues to unfold, because the more we get a little handle on something, the more we think we understand something, that understanding opens so many doors that we have no idea what's going on. And the more we understand the little bits, the larger becomes the mystery. Because when you're talking about infinity, a little piece of knowledge against the universe of possible knowledge is a pretty big mystery.
Yeah. And yeah. I mean, we know that there are electrons and there's atoms and things are made out of atoms, but now we know that there are subatomic energies that are happening and not happening so fast, and that just opens a mystery that's so much greater.
Well, you said something about this new religion coming forward, this new spirituality, and I kind of think it's ancient, that it's old, that what's new is we are now able to name parts of it with these discoveries, and we're starting to be able to intellectually name what the processes look like and what they are, and maybe even predict some of them. But it's an ancient, I think it's something that I think that each one of us has something within us as human beings that traces back to infinity, or I mean, I
And
haven't
and I'll just throw this in and you can keep going. You just delineated what's different, and that's that now everybody can play. You don't need to be the elite or a priest. Everybody can play. So,
right. It's not secret knowledge anymore. It is now being revealed to everyone, and that's where that whole waking up, that we are in water, we're fish, we're in water, we're in something, and trying to figure out what we do with that is a whole nother program. I think we could go to, but. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that, I think there is still mystery. I think there's still
oh my
an
gosh.
unknown.
And my
And I
point here is that the mystery is there is no final resolution. That the
Yeah.
mystery, the uncovering piece, is what is most decidedly human.
Yeah.
And that aspect of it is a mystery in itself. I'm not suggesting the mystery goes away. I am suggesting that uncovering the mystery is an integral aspect of consciousness and of human consciousness, and that
It's an animating force. It is something that pushes humans forward. And even though there's billions of different viewpoints and ways of getting there, the force is the same in all of us that is pushing us toward a desire to seek the mystery, to seek understanding.
and
Yeah.
go ahead, Marianne.
Oh, I was just going to totally agree with that, because I think that's it. But we get sidetracked, we get lost in the minutia of day-to-day living. And to be able to, and what pops into my head is the whole idea of being in the world and not of it. So how do we find that balance to be able to be in the world and delight in the fun and the good things, and still be able to not get lost in it? Because that's what I think, that's the whole waking up thing, is when we start to see that, oh my gosh, I'm taking this a little bit too seriously, but I'm not taking this part seriously enough. And where's that balance?
And gets back to discernment and how we create the faculties of discernment that have what I would call a high rational yield. That you begin to sort what is healthy and whole and what is partial and maybe symptomatically pleasurable, but the consequences of it are of a negative take, if you will.
But it's the seeking of that balance between the individual and the universe, or the conscious and the unconscious, that Jung termed individuation. And the whole idea that he labeled the self was that point of balance that not only draws the pieces of our existence toward this balance, but embodies that balance once we get there.
Yeah. And that's part of what the consequences of discovery. I know in the search for DNA up through the CRISPR, every step of the way they realize the consequences of this are going to benefit the rich. How do we keep it so that everybody has access to this? And believe it or not, the scientists are dealing with that piece as well and trying to make sure that sickle cell anemia can be cured with the CRISPR gene. I mean cured, right? And it's mostly a black disease. But black people aren't the ones who have the money, and it creates a huge moral tension. And I think that's the policy playground or battleground in how these things get discovered and how they come to be a shot in everybody's arm if you're sane enough to actually follow the science and go get it. And my point here is that this uncovering, I mean, we back in Aristotle, they came up with the idea of an atom. Things were made up of atoms, and then eventually we realized the atoms had parts, and the different parts interacted. And eventually we said, well, it's not about matter, it's about energy. And after a while we said, oh wait, it's not about energy, it's about information. And now we're going, it's not about information, it's about light. It's about quanta. It's about, the dance of light at the most minute place that we can imagine at this point, all the way up to dark matter. And we're just now scratching dark matter. So I'm not suggesting, again, the mystery goes away. I am suggesting that the mystery, and Bob, you said this earlier, gets deeper and wider. And if we have the tools in our belt, which is basically just learning to think about stuff in new ways, you can have a damn good time dancing in the mystery. As a matter of fact, I think the three of us are trying to make an attempt at that, and it's a great journey.
Well, I think that there's a really important point that was discovered as we began to look into the depths of the atom and the subatomic particles and so forth. And that discovery was that we were affecting what we were observing. It was a part of us. We were a part of it. And that discovery has so many implications for how we deal with each other and how we deal with the world around us, because the scientists are now able to prove that consciousness, the consciousness of the observer, is affecting what is being observed.
Which, again, and that totally underscores the whole idea of personal responsibility. Exactly. And how much we need to be responsible for our own thoughts and actions. Yeah.
It totally redefines our relationship with the world around us.
Yeah. Well, now we're getting into the consequences and accountabilities, because responsibility, the ability to respond, and one's accountability for that, and how we hold people accountable, that's where law comes in and a whole bunch of other stuff. And we're uncovering and being revealed the big loopholes in the systems of law, in the very systems and the institutions that mediate our relationships on a grand scale. And that's what these institutions are. We're learning that they can be abused, they can be used, and there are huge loopholes that if you have enough money and enough lawyers, my friends, it's very difficult to be touched. You can go out on the street with an AK-15 and shoot people, and we now know that you can do that.
And get a job in Congress afterwards.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I think that. Oh, never mind. It's gone. I went down that rabbit hole of what just occurred, and it's not good. So.
Well, I just saw a really heartwarming photograph to try and put a little bit of optimism into this discussion. It was a photograph from one of the Black Lives Matter protests, and a little white girl, probably 7, 8, maybe 10 years old at the outside, ran up to the front of that demonstration and reached her hand out and held hands with one of the organizers that was leading the march, and they walked together. And the girl's mother said she just wanted to be a part of it. She wanted to do her part. And I think that's a real statement about the hope and optimism of the younger generations.
But also the small act, and how one so small can make such an impact in one small act. Yeah. That is huge.
And this is how we uncover. There are so many layers that we are working on a revelation. And I think we are living in a time of revelation and reformation. We haven't gotten to the reformation part. We're still doing what I would call diagnosis. We can't get a prognosis until we have a clear diagnosis. And that's where our storytellers, we go back to that, they're starting to help us uncover some of these injustices that are for many on the other side are blatant. If you're a black person, they're blatant. If you're a white person, they're fine or nuanced because of our blind spots, if you will. But there's no doubt. I'm waiting for the book on Robert E. Lee, the price of it to come down so I can read it, because it's going to indict my soul. But it's also going to purge my soul of some of the huge misguidedness that was put in there when I was very young. And that's part of the uncovering process. We each are doing it. We're each doing it. I think, Mary Ann, part of what you keep coming back to is we each have a responsibility to address this aspect of ourselves in order to become what, I don't care whether you call it God, the Tao, the universe, whatever it's trying to lead us to. Now, we're coming to the end of our time. I hate to say it. So, Mary Ann, final comments?
I think something that was said, and I don't know which one of you guys said it, but it was, the world around us is not really around us. It's in us, and we're in it. And I think that's that recognition that we are an intricate part of this mystery that is being revealed through our consciousness, through each one of us in different, wholly different ways. And I think taking that in is one big step forward.
Amen. Bob?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think that what is really important is that each individual takes very careful cognizance of his or her actions because of that interconnection. And even more so when you think you're doing something really good, don't hide behind that. Look at it fully and see what the consequences are. And maybe what you think is really good is something you need to temper a little bit.
Amen. And, there's a process of uncovering. And it's a process that each of us are, as Mary Ann said, it's in us and we're in it. It's an amazing thing. We're kind of like suspended in this web. Oh, wow. One who said that before, maybe every mystic ever. Where do we go? I loved when the Graham Edge poem from the Moody Blues, flourishing on earth. What does that mean, to flourish on earth? We talk about all the things going wrong and how they go wrong, and they are. I see them again as an algorithm. You do something, you go, ooh, not that way. You can find another way, you go, ooh, that's not that way. And that's what the human being has been doing. But we keep redefining what flourishing means, because with each definition, we include more people. Because we have more empathy. In the 19th century, it was white people who flourished because of the narratives we told ourselves. But what does it mean when we include everybody and we say flourishing on earth? Well, we're going to go and do that dance. We wish all of you the very best, and may you flourish this week in the blessings of the One.